21 General Rules, Part 2. Once again, your mileage may vary. Apply these with discretion to your own situation, but I believe it's worth at least understanding why these are valid in a lot of fiction through the ages, I believe. Rule 11. Try to have at least one underlying side story going on at the same time as the main one. This particular one is more my opinion. I'm not sure how tried and true this is, although you certainly see this in a lot of genre fiction. Multiple storylines, at least one more. But the point is, it adds to the tension, and it gets the reader thinking about a little bit more than just the scene in front of them. For example, let's say you have two people talking in a bar about the main thing, the main problem that they're trying to solve in the book, the main thing that stems from the inciting incident that the main character is dealing with. But while they're talking, while they're having this conversation, it's not bad to wonder about how something else is coming along. Like maybe the main character that afternoon had another conversation with somebody about something either related or similar. And the other person said, okay, fine, I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. I'm on this. Maybe they're trying to track down another lead, and he's got a friend or an associate who's going to help him do that. And so that scene ends in the afternoon. Now in the evening, the main character is sitting in a bar talking to somebody else. But now the reader is wondering, hey, I wonder if that other guy from the afternoon is having any luck tracking that thing down. Maybe he ran into something earth-shattering here. I can't wait to find out if, how that went, what's going on there. So it's just good to incorporate multiple storylines whenever you can. 2 is good enough. A main story and a side story. The first novel I wrote, I had many going on at once. Very hard to control it, very hard to handle it. It was a real workout to write it and keep it all straight. And it may work, it may not. Sometimes a simple story works the best. But I would have at least one other underlying thing going on, even if the other underlying storyline is not the full length of the book. Just you can have various little minor storylines going at the same time as the main one. Just to spice it up, give it a little more depth. Okay, don't try to anticipate the reader. Write honestly. This is a little different than what we were talking about, trying to figure out your genre and who your readership might be, and should you write, crime thrillers or military science fiction, all that kind of stuff. You're anticipating the reader a little bit there if you're really trying to cater or trying to kind of tailor from the beginning the type of book you're writing to the reader. That's a little different. But once you're into it and you're writing it, don't start wondering if the reader would appreciate something. Who would want to read this? Would they enjoy this? Is this going to confuse them? Just write honestly. It comes out much better that way. Don't consider the reader as you're writing the novel. Keep your paragraphs short. In this day and age, I hate to say it, but you might consider limiting yourself to one sentence paragraphs. That sounds radical. But given the attention span, the short attention span, and the distractedness of today's readers to a large extent, that might be the way to go. Just give them one sentence per paragraph. I honestly think I might consider that, unless it's really necessary to join a couple of sentences together to make your point. Then you don't want to break them up. But if you can get away with it, think about one sentence per paragraph. Keep them short. Respect the fact that characters can change once you're 50 pages in or any number of pages in. Just whether you outline meticulously or just kind of wing it by the seat of your pants, doesn't matter. You have you have a sense as the novel unfolds of who your characters really are and kind of where they're going. But that can change. That can change kind of before your eyes. Somebody can say something. An incident can unfold that you didn't expect to unfold. It just sort of happens. It seems natural. You insert that, and then all of a sudden your characters now are a little different. They're a little different type of people, or one of them anyway might be a different type of person than you thought. And just go with that. Don't be locked in rigid for the whole book that your characters have to look and act and perform a certain way. Be flexible. You can learn a lot from the movies and from TV. When in doubt, write in scenes as much as possible. You think about the movie is all scenes. Everything's a scene. It's 112 minutes, very specific, however long a typical full-length feature is. Certain number of scenes in there, 24 scenes, 112 minutes, whatever it is. It's almost formulaic. But there's something to be said for that. There's no dead wood in a good movie. There's no backstory, no big description. Backstory is worked into the scenes, but sometimes there's flashbacks, of course. But generally it's, people talking in a movie. And there's some action, etc. But there's very little narration where you have an outside narrator overdubbing the thing with narration. That's what novels do. And I would, think about, when in doubt again, think about the way the movies handle it. Movies tend to keep the viewer's interest. Obviously, it's easier to watch a movie than read a book. But again, scenes are good. Elmore Leonard wrote strictly in scenes. And then he moved on. So two people talking, something happens, some guy pulls a weapon and chases another guy down the street. The police show up, searching for a dead body, whatever. But when you really break it down, they're all scenes. There isn't just this intermittent dead wood where the narrator's filling you in. And another thing, when in doubt, write fast. If you're having trouble wondering, should you massage something, work it over, get it right? No, write fast. It'll probably come out just as good, if not better. And if nothing else, it's fresher. So try to write fast. Nobody's going to care if you get every word just right. I'm sorry, but that's the unfortunate reality. And in the motivation section, I pointed out, that held me back for a lot of years. I wasted time thinking the world was going to judge me, that my style wasn't the greatest, etc. Nobody wants to study you in a literature class. They just want to find out what happens. Tell them quickly. Speak your dialogue out loud as you write it. I think we referred earlier to reading sections of your prose out loud, reading sections of your novel. But this is specifically as you're writing the dialogue, as you're typing it, say it out loud. And I pointed out earlier, dialogue is tricky. It's a skill. It's an acquired skill. You need to study other writers, other tried and true fiction, and see how they handle it. But you need to plunge in and try dialogue. You don't want to avoid dialogue. You don't want to avoid dialogue because you're not good at it. That's what a lot of aspiring writers do. They're top heavy on the narration just because they're afraid of the dialogue. They're not comfortable with it. And part of the way to improve all that is to speak it out and see if it sounds natural. Number 18, avoid the passive voice. Try to get right to the point. Be in the reader's face. So passive voice would be the entire house was painted by Tom. But no, the better way, Tom painted the house. Tom painted the entire house. Active. Stay active. The obstacle course was run by Jason in record time. What you want is Jason ran the obstacle course in record time. These sound obvious and simple, but it's amazing how often you'll lapse into that passive voice without even realizing it. Stay active, stay proactive, stay right in the reader's face up front and center. This is kind of a curious one, but it makes sense. Don't worry about your grammar being perfect. You're not writing a dissertation. You're not writing a master's thesis here. You're a human being telling a story, talking the way humans talk, and flaws and mistakes are natural. In fact, faulty grammar can sometimes add color to the story. Faulty grammar can make it better. I have readers sometimes that will proofread just, very kindly on their own, take it upon themselves. They'll proofread my works, and they'll enjoy doing it. They'll send me a revised thing, and I don't have the heart to tell them once in a while that I intended it that way. They'll correct some of the grammar, but I meant it to be that way, right or wrong. I meant some of it that way, and because that's just the style. Even the narrator, even a third person narrator, can certainly speak in flawed grammar. That to me that works fine if it's relatively consistent. That's normal. That's natural. Obviously, a first person narrator can speak any way they want. They can speak in broken English. I mean, or the American idiom, Huckleberry Finn, that type of thing, and that's entertaining as well. But a third person narrator as well, he or she, they can still speak without perfect grammar, and it not only is it okay often, but it sometimes is effective. Don't overdo the research. Sometimes, maybe you live in New York and you want to write a story about somebody or Orlando, Florida, and it's tempting to, some writers actually go there. Some writers will travel, actually, do their research. Maybe not that extreme, but they might drive somewhere. You live in San Francisco and you're writing a story that takes place in Bakersfield. You might go down there for the weekend, look around. That's fine. I just think that all slows you down from doing the main thing, which is writing the darn book. You can go on the internet and look around, spend a lot of time. You can research it that way. That can slow you down too. I know there's one writer that's done very well. He's sort of a Jack Reacher, Lee Child imitator in genre fiction. And I think I read that he does everything. He lives in England. I could be wrong, but I think I read he does everything on Google, what do you call it? Google Maps, Google Street View. So he'll write a story. He'll place his character in San Francisco for one book. He'll go on Street View. He'll research the whole thing on Street View. Kind of get it all right, get the streets right. And the guy's driving around making turns, and he's going to well-known locations and this and that. And this guy's sitting there with his feet up in England by the fireplace, can have the whole thing unfold in front of him on Street View and then write it down. And every once in a while you'll get a real local person will correct stuff, but it's not worth flying from England to San Francisco, in my opinion, to get a few more details right. But that's an extreme example. Again, just on the internet itself. Don't spend a lot of time researching stuff. Look something up, get it right as best you can, and then move on. Main thing is to get your writing down. You can always fill it in at the very end. If you felt something was off, run it by an expert and fill that in. But don't waste time researching. It can get the better of you, and all of a sudden you can find, you spent the whole afternoon researching something and you didn't get any writing done. It very easily can happen. And the final point, I've made it before in different versions, but leave out the boring parts. That's hard to understand, and we writers tend to think everything we write is compelling and great. We hate to waste words. And it's true, you don't want to cut too much. The best way to leave out the boring parts is don't put them down in the first place. And you develop this. You develop this ability to sort of, like a little radar goes up. And as you start writing, and you just sort of, you try to be aware all along, is this boring? Does this, first of all, follow the main storyline? Is it out of the realm of the main storyline? Is it too far out of the realm? Doesn't add anything, doesn't add any color, doesn't shed light on any characters. But secondly, is it just downright boring? If it is, sorry, you gotta try to leave that out. Okay. Again, every one of these rules, including the Elmore Leonard ones, take them with a grain of salt. They may or may not apply to you, but I believe it's important and instructive to go back over these now and then and just remind yourself of some of the basic tried and true rules of writing fiction that have worked for a lot of people over a lot of years.